Hey y'all, happy Sunday and welcome to this week's live Q&A session. This is the portion of the show where we allow YouTube to send out notifications that we're going live. If you're watching this live Q&A on replay, please scrub ahead until this graphic disappears and the actual show begins. If you're watching live and you have any comments or questions, please go ahead and put them in the live chat. But for now, grab a beverage, sit back, and relax while the countdown timer does its thing. Then we'll get started. Happy Sunday, y'all. Hope everybody's doing well. It's been a week and it's continuing to be a week, but all is well. All is good. Breathe in, breathe out, move on. Right. So, welcome. And thank you for spending part of your Sunday with me. We're going to get into a little bit more on the Avid CNC Rotary Axis today. I released a video this morning that detailed the assembly and mounting of it. And I'm also going to be making a little bit of an announcement later on. Next week, we're going to have a special guest. First time on this channel, I believe. First time on one of my Sunday live streams. But we'll get into that a little bit more later on, mainly because I want to see does he pop into the chat. But before we get going, before we do anything else, I wanted to say hello and thank you to Steve over at Harneal Media. You see him in the chat here every Sunday. He's my only moderator, as a matter of fact. And eh, on top of everything else, I mean, he just does a bang up job at that. Look, I've been talking about Steve for a couple of years now, and I do that for a reason. He's just good. He's good at what he does. What does he do? Well, funny you should ask, or not, as the case may be. If you are looking at maybe getting a website, putting a website together, and believe me, if you are making products, you are building up a business, whether it be a side hustle or you hope to build it up to a point someday to where you can retire from your current job and start doing your woodworking full time, there is no better way to establish a web presence and legitimacy than with a website. And there are a lot of affiliate programs, a lot of sponsorship deals. They want a good, strong web presence. They want somebody who has an established track record. And a website helps with that to no end. Uh, on top of that, that gives you the opportunity to create a web store where you can offer your products and services to the general public without paying somebody else a commission. Now, Steve can help you take care of that. He can help you run it, do as much or as little as you want him to take care of. And he's very, very competitively priced. Two things I like best about Steve is, number one, it's 100% personalized service. When you're dealing with Harneal Media, you're dealing with Steve, not somebody in the background, not some faceless, nameless person in a call center somewhere that you'll never talk to again. You're dealing with Steve. The other thing I like about Steve is he doesn't give you excuses. He gives you results. He gives you performance. So there is a link to Harneal Media in everything on this channel, and it's that way for a reason. He's just good, and there's no way around it. So do yourself a favor. Go over to harnealmedia.com, click that contact us button, and shoot him a little message. Tell him you want to talk. He will take care of you. Believe me when I say that. So, and thank you, Steve, for sponsoring MarkLindsayCNC.com. I do greatly appreciate it. Okay, let's get into a few things here about the assembly and mounting of this rotary axis. I got to tell you, at 63 years old, I have done quite a bit of assembly and quite a bit of mounting, tab A into slot B in my life. And I've tried to follow instructions, especially when it's something that you've never done before, or even if it's something that you did once 15 years ago and can't remember what the heck you did. I've got to give Avid a shout out because whoever came up with their online instructions for the assembly of the CNC router or of the rotary axis, whoever came up with those instructions did a primo job. I mean, all you have to do is go to the instructions page and just start at step one and move all the way to the final step, and you just really can't go wrong. There's just no way that you can mess up if you follow those instructions. Don't get sidetracked. Don't jump ahead. Just follow the instructions, and they explain why you're doing what you're doing in those instructions. Best laid out things I've ever seen in my life. So thank you to Avid CNC for thinking through your instruction sheet and presenting them in such a way that you've anticipated a lot of questions. I mean, I I didn't have time to dedicate one whole day to building and mounting the rotary axis, so I had to do it in like 2-hour spurts. But I'm here to tell you, if you are mounting an Avid rotary axis to an Avid CNC, depending upon the length of your machine and depending upon the length of the rotary that you're getting and how you're mounting it, one person could have this. You could go from taking parts out of boxes to up and running in one day. It 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 really is that simple. And it's again a step-by-step process. One person could have that up and running in one day. Now, I didn't have a full day to dedicate to it, so I did it over the course of 3 or 4 days. But I mean, easy as pie. And configuration for Mach 4, just as you saw in the video, it was a few mouse clicks and it was done. I mean, it was that easy. Now, having said all that, I have not calibrated it yet, and I have not checked for backlash or anything yet. What I've got to do now is I got to focus on getting the spoil board mounted so I can do 1 or 2 small projects. Then I can get back to the rotary. That's one reason why I'm having a guest next week. The calibration and checking for backlash, I am not going to do a video on that simply because it is pretty machine specific. And if you don't follow the instructions for your machine, you can have a very hard crash and break something. And I mean a very hard crash. We're talking about there's like a 3/4 inch dowel, steel dowel that goes into the chuck, and there's a 8mm aluminum dowel that goes into the spindle, and it will come down and touch off the top of that big dowel in the chuck, then move off to one side, drop down, come over and touch off, then lift up, go over to the other side, come in and touch off, then come back over to the top and touch off again. Scary stuff. If you mess something up, you're in a world of hurt. So I won't be getting into that. However, there is a gentleman who has done that. He has done a video on calibration. He's done a video on checking for backlash. And his name is Jim Neeb. And he runs a real tidy YouTube channel called JN Woodworks. Now, there's a couple of JN Woodworks out there. So I put a link to his YouTube channel down in the description of this video. Jim is one of those guys who absolutely loves to accessorize his CNC router. Now, and he does have an Avid CNC. I chose to mount my rotary axis along on the tabletop along my Y because I could get a little bit more capacity between centers. You can also mount it on, drop it down and recess mount it inside the frame of the CNC along the X, parallel with the X axis. And that's how he did his. So you can get another feel for different types of mounting and what have you. Another reason why I went with the tabletop mount was because if I recessed it down here along the X in the within the frame, it would take up about 14 inches of my Y capacity and move that bottom left corner that I tend to set my XY0 on back from the front of the machine 14 inches. In a larger shop environment, that may not be a problem for you, but it is a problem for me. Again, I'm in a 12 by 16 shed, and from the front of the machine where I'm at right here to the back wall, I have about 6.5 feet. So I don't have the Y capacity to give away for mounting a rotary down inside the frame. That's why I decided to go with the tabletop mount all the way over here in the X direction, X positive direction, so I can still have a little over 3 feet here of spoil board capacity. And I still have the full length of my Y, such as it is. So that's why I mounted it where I mounted it. That's why I mounted it. That's why I mounted it the way I mounted it. And I have no regrets. As it sits right now, everything is great. So let's see here. Let's get to a couple of questions we have on it. This is not really a question, but Pete Bune says, "Hi, Mark, great video and excellent timing. Thank you. Since I'm in the process of putting my Avid rotary together." Again, if you follow those instructions step by step, easy as pie. Really is. Now, also, I would highly recommend you look down on the description and get over to Jim Neeb's YouTube channel and check out his Avid CNC Rotary Axis videos. He does a superb job of documenting what he does, and he knows his stuff when it comes to this machine. Jim loves to accessorize, so he has added lasers, he's added ATCs, automatic tool changers, he's added all kinds of stuff to his Avid. He's far more adventurous than I am. But I'm at that stage where I want to use mine. I don't want to keep tinkering with it and adding stuff to it, the rotary notwithstanding. I have a bunch of parts I need to make, so I do need the rotary. But I highly suggest it. And also, he is very active over on the Avid CNC support forum. You'll find him over there real easy. I mean, and he, like I say, he's very, very active over there. And he's just a good guy. I've chatted with him behind the scenes. He's just a good guy. So and for those of you who don't have an Avid or don't have not thinking about a rotary axis, he has done so much more over there. It's worth going over and taking a look. So again, that's JN Woodworks, and Steve has already put a link out here in the chat. I highly, highly recommend it. If you are an accessorizer, he's your man, believe me. So let's see here now. Yeah, let's get into that. Mike Healy wants to know, when adding, or adding, for those of you who can speak, a rotary to a non-Avid machine, what advice would you give for the process of alignment to the machine? Okay. It does require some specialized tools. Okay. But if you can get your hands on a mount and B, a test indicator. It's similar to a dial indicator, but instead of the probe registering on the dial and the vertical position, it's kind of a spring-loaded tip that you can put up against the rails of your rotary. Let me switch cameras and get over here, and I'll try to show you what I'm talking about. And let's get over. Okay, and I'm going to see if I can zoom this in a little bit here. Maybe I can, maybe I can't. I don't know. Oh, hey, I can zoom in. All right. I would put that, okay, obviously, you're going to have some space over here. Wherever you're going to mount it, being it in the Y direction or the X direction, you'd mount that indicator in your spindle. Come down here and just touch the tip of that indicator against the rail of your rotary. Your rotary should be in a frame similar to this. And touch that indicator down here, set it to 0, and then run it up along the side. And when you get up to this end, as close to this end as you can get, take your reading and see how far off you are. Now, it's real easy to drive yourself nuts and chase zeros at this point. But if you're doing woodworking, you need to remember that woodworking is a lot more forgiving than metal machining is. And I get a lot of flack from machinists for what I'm saying right now. But if you've spent 20, 30 years of your life working in a machine shop and you're used to 4 and 5 digit resolution, that is complete overkill and in a lot of cases undesirable for woodworking. Avid's their tolerance is within 5/1000ths of an inch. Now, remember, that's 5/1000ths of an inch from this end to this end over 49 inches. If you're off by 5/1000ths of an inch over the course of 49 inches, you are golden. That's good enough for woodworking. The reason is because unlike metal, wood moves long after the tree has been chopped down and dried. It's going to expand and contract with changes in humidity, with the moisture from glue, if you're gluing tab A into slot B. So having that tight a tolerance is not only unnecessary, in a lot of cases, it's undesirable because it just makes things harder to put together. So if you're not using any kind of a frame on your rotary axis setup and you have just a tailstock mounted on a sliding track using T-track or something like that, again, it's pretty much the same thing. You'll just align, put a piece of material between centers as long as you can go and test off of that piece of material. Obviously, it'll need to be straight and it'll need to be pretty stout so it doesn't bend in the middle. But you can get a piece of steel rod at your local big box store that should be straight enough for you to get a good accurate reading off of. So again, if you have a frame, measure that frame and try to get it within 5/1000ths, both in the X or Y direction and in the Z direction. I had to shim this up a little bit and then took a reading and had to take those shims back out. So it is a back and forth type process. The alignment is what took the longest. That took me, I did it for about an hour and a half on day 1 and then got it first time on day 2. But it is tedious, but it needs to be done. And once it's dialed in, I believe I'm within 4 thousandths in Y and within 5 thousandths in Z. Good enough for me, good enough for woodworking. So take your time, do it right, and the benefits will pay off, believe me. So, let's see here. Yeah, Dwayne says that's a little more than 1/1000th per foot. What are you thinking? I'm thinking that I'm used to a 1/16 of an inch builder's tolerance, Brooks. And I don't know about yours, but my tape measure don't have lines that small. So that's what I mean. It's good enough for woodworking. So let's see. So I hope that answered your question, Mike. Just try to be as vigilant as you can on it. And I mean, I get it. It's when I first set it up, I was off by 26 thousandths, and you can't see 26 thousandths. And I used to think dial indicators and test indicators and things like that were really overkill, and I didn't really need them. But when you start using one, you start seeing like, holy cow, tightening a fastener, just tightening it down will move something 10 thousandths of an inch. And then now you got to back that out. And that's why I went so crazy with the torque wrenches. And I wanted to make sure that I was tightening all of the bolts to the same torque, mainly because if I have one bolt tighter here than I have over here, depending upon if I'm bolting down or bolting up from the bottom, I could pull that down just slightly. And it does matter. You'd be amazed. So just be as vigilant as you can. And, it's tedious, but it's worth the time. So, okay. Let's see here. Kurt over at Crafty Jans. Does your standard control computer you have on the side of your Avid control the rotary plugins without need of modifications? Do you need to order a computer in anticipation of the rotary? No. This is an older Dell desktop tower that is way overkill for running this CNC. Mach 4 doesn't take a lot of resources, but the resources it takes, it needs dedication to it. So I don't run a laptop. Laptops are all about saving power because whether you're plugged in or not, they assume you're running off the battery. I will not run a laptop. I 100% run a desktop computer. As I say, they don't take much in the way of resources. And there is no module or plug-in for the Avid Rotary. It's an addition to the profile that just isn't activated if you don't have the Rotary. And as you saw in the video, all I did was I went into the machine configuration, turned on Rotary Axis, and told it what Rotary Axis I had, what size Rotary I had, and saved that, and then went over into machine setup and told it that I'm using the Avid spindle and the Avid Rotary Axis. And that was it. It was done. From there, I just needed to line it up, and we're back to the mechanical. The electronic, it was all done. The computer I have is still way overkill for use with that Rotary Axis. Whatever control software you're using, go to its website and look at their minimum requirements, system requirements, and that'll tell you what you need. And generally speaking, it's not a lot. I wouldn't spend a lot of money buying a computer in anticipation of adding a Rotary Axis. If the computer you have runs your CNC router just fine, it'll run the Rotary Axis just fine as well. If you're not having computer issues, then you don't need to worry about it. If you're still in the market and you haven't got your CNC, but if you're still in the market for a CNC, look into the control software that you're going to be using and see what the system requirements are for that. You may not even have to go buy a new computer. Check with your friends and family. I mean, I've told this story before. When I first got into CNC, I told my friends and family that I was going to be looking for a computer. At that time, I was running Mach 3. And it needed to be at least Windows XP. And so I told them, I said, look, if you've got an old computer floating around that's running Windows XP, you know, tucked under the bed or hiding in the closet somewhere that you're no longer using, let me know. I might be interested in buying it. Well, at the end of that week, I had 4 given to me. It's like, get it out of my house, will you? So, I mean, talk to your friends and family. There may be an unwanted computer collecting dust in somebody's closet that's more than enough to run your CNC router. And again, I do not run a laptop. I run a desktop computer, and its sole mission in life is to run Mach 4. It can't go online. It can't update. It can't do any of that stuff. It's a dumb terminal. Its sole purpose in life is to run Mach 4. It can't even play solitaire. So, all right, let's see here. Dwayne says an easy way for the Z test is to turn around on each end of the Y and measure the diameters, then adjust by half the difference. Yeah, and that's getting it dialed in to, you know, get as coplanar as possible. And you know, if you're larger or smaller at one end than the other, then you know you got to adjust by, again, half, as Dwayne says. So if you're 10 thousandths larger, you might need to drop that by 5 thousandths. So, you know, but then again, you can chase your tail on that very easily. The problem that I had, to be honest with you, was even though I was torquing things down to the same torque value, the problem I had was when you tighten a fastener, let's say you're adjusting your Z. When you tighten a fastener, you can also just move that slightly in X or Y, depending upon which direction you're moving. You wouldn't think that's possible, but watch your dial indicator while you're tightening stuff down, and you'll see that needle just, you know, doing that. And you kind of have to anticipate and then, you know, compensate for it a little bit. Kind of like using Kentucky windage on a dial indicator, you know. Let's see here. Dwayne also says, does that use the A axis or the B? It uses the A. It uses the A axis. And that's, you know, again, I just set up with their profile. It is truly 100% plug and play. You know, the segment of that video where I plugged in the cables was about 3.5 seconds long. And that's about how long it took in real time. Just plug this cord in here, plug this cable in there, run them down, and I still need to route them and P-clip them to the frame and plug them into the bottom of the control box in the appropriate control. And that's it. It just took me longer to tell you that than it did to do it. And I love it. I'm a plug and play kind of guy. Okay, let's see. I think that's all the Rotary Axis questions I have. We've got a few others here. Mad Dog Tungate. Been a while since I've caught a live stream. Yeah, missed you, man. Just now getting back into my Avid CNC up and running again. Life got in the way. Yeah, well, life is what happens while you're busy making other plans. So, it's just, what can you do? Russ, Blue Line Wood Flag. Speaking of not seeing somebody around in a while, nice to see that life has finally let you sit down. Did I have to install taller gantry risers? No, I did not. No, I did not. With the stock gantry risers and the stock Z-axis, it comes from Avid with capacity, an 8-inch capacity down to a spoil board. Okay. Mine's going to be 1.5 inches thick, 2 pieces of 3/4 inch thick material. So I've reduced my Z-axis by about 1.5 inches, roughly. With the tabletop setup, I will have a capacity of 4 inches above the center line for a total max swing of 8 inches. If I were to recess it, I would have a max swing of 12 inches. So 6 inches above the I'm sitting here using my cursor like you can see that. 6 inches above the center. So, but then again, what I need to turn, I don't need anything that big. I don't know that I would ever turn anything even 8 inches in diameter. I was more concerned with the length of the material I could get between centers than I was in the total diameter. Now, if I absolutely have to get something larger than that, I can go order the recessed mounting kit for it and put it down in between my frame rails and get that extra capacity. But I don't see myself needing it. I really don't. So, but no, I did not put in taller risers. This is just 100% stock. So, let's see here. Mad Dog says, I'm very interested in the rotary axis for my machine. Cool. I have the 4x8 Avid. Well, doesn't matter which motor package you have. If you have the NEMA 23 or the NEMA 34, the rotary axis comes with the NEMA 34. And there is instructions on how to hook that up to the NEMA 23 control box. So, I mean, check out the instruction sheet. I know you don't have a rotary axis yet, but go over to the rotary axis page, scroll down to the bottom, you'll find a link to the instruction set, and check it out. And it's like I said, a person can go from taking parts out of boxes to having it up and running in a day, if you have the time to dedicate to it. So, okay, we've got a few off-topic questions here that I want to go ahead and address. Let's see here. Gene Scott says, question making a sign. I want the CNC bit to form a letter only to go around once. It wants to go around 4 times, going down deeper each time. How do I fix this to go around once? Okay. There's a few things to consider. I can show you that's fairly simple, but there are a few things to consider when doing that. All right. Let's go ahead. I didn't know if I was going to need to create a project, or I should have went ahead and created one anyway. Let's go ahead and create a new file, and we'll do single-sided 12 by 12 by 3/4 of an inch. Click OK. And let's just say, for giggles, you said a letter. All right. Let's do a letter here. And I will also ask you, Gene, Are you doing a profile, cutting out the letter, or are you V-carving it, or what are you doing? What are you trying to get it to do one pass? So I'm going to go ahead and do bold text, and we'll just do capital letter M, close. I'll center that in my material and make it a lot bigger so you can see it. There we go. All right. Looking to see if Gene has added any additional information. No, I don't see. But basically what it's going to come down to is, let's pocket it out. What the heck? Basically what it's going to come down to is the pass depth of your machine in your tool, pass depth of the bit in your tool database. So if I'm going to pocket this out 3/8 of an inch deep, not going to use a 1/2 inch end mill. That's a bit too big. And maybe this was the wrong thing to demonstrate on. But let's select this and we'll go with the 1/4 inch end mill. Now, if we look here, what I have is pass depth of 1/4 of an inch. I'm going to be cutting 3/8 of an inch. So it's deeper than my pass depth. But I don't want to change my pass depth for this bit permanently. So I'm just going to select it. Then I'm going to come into edit over here, not select, but edit. And I'm going to come over and I'm going to change the pass depth here to 0.375. Now, again, make sure your machine, your bit, and your material can handle this. There are some machines that are not capable of doing that deep of a plunge in one pass. There are some materials that are not capable of doing that, allowing you to do that deep of a plunge in one pass. And there are some bits that are not capable of doing this. I would not do this with a 1/8 inch end mill or smaller. I probably wouldn't do this with anything less than a 1/4 inch end mill. So it's going to depend on your machine, your material, and your tool. What I mean by the material is if you are cutting, let's say, ipe. Ipe is an incredibly hard wood. And I've mentioned it more in the last month than I have in the previous 5 years, simply because I'm seeing a lot of people ask questions about it here lately. If you're familiar with the Janka hardness scale, hard maple sits at about 1400, plus or minus. It's a little bit more than 1400. Purple heart sits at 2400, 2500, excuse me. Ipe sits at 3400. It's incredibly hard, it's incredibly dense, and it is absolutely jam-packed loaded with silica. It can be very, very hard to work. You are not going to carve anything. I wouldn't use my 1/2 inch bit, my 1/2 inch diameter end mill, to try a 3/8 inch depth of cut, pass depth. It's not going to work. The material won't allow it. So, but anyway, using the edit command, you're editing the tool, and that's going to affect this tool path only. And do OK. And that is going to set your number of passes right there. Now, another way of doing this is you can come over here to edit passes. And that'll open up. You can adjust your pass depth here. You could do this what I just did here as well by coming down here and saying, coming from 2 passes to 1 pass, then you have to click the Set Passes button. So let me cancel that. Let me remove that tool. Let me go back in and I'll select it again without the editing I just did. So I've got a pass depth of 1/4 of an inch. Select. It's going to do it in 2 passes. I want it to do it in 1 pass. So I'll click Edit Passes. I'll drop that down to 1 pass at 0.375. Click Set Passes and click OK. Then I'll calculate, and let's rotate this up. And if we look at our toolpath, red line is a rapid move over to this point. The light blue line is a plunge, and the dark blue line is the cut itself. After it gets done cutting all this out, the green line is a retract. It's going to do this in 1 pass. Okay? So those are 2 ways of getting that same result. You can either go back into the toolpath here. You can either go in and edit the pass depth, or you can edit the number of passes. But when you edit that number of passes, you have to click on Set Passes. If you just click OK, it's not going to save that number. Okay? All right. I hope that answers that question. So let's see here now. Today's going to be a little bit different in that I've got something going on this afternoon. So I'm going to have to leave this after about an hour, and we're already getting close. So Peter S. says, should you also slow down the feed rate if you want to reduce the passes? Probably a little bit. Probably some, yeah. Doing it all in 1 pass, it's kind of I don't know. We have a tendency to concern ourselves more with speed and getting it off of the machine at whatever cost, sometimes to our detriment. Personally, I would rather something take 45 minutes on the machine and me not have to do any cleanup sanding at all than take it off the machine after 10 minutes and then spend an hour cleaning it up with sandpaper. So I'm prepared to let it take a little bit more time. So yeah, I would probably slow down the feed rate if I'm trying to cut that deep in 1 pass, depending upon the material. You might want to slow it down dramatically. Like, for instance, the feed rate on that 1/4 inch end mill was 180 inches per minute. If I'm going through plywood, that's fine. If I'm going through maple, I'll probably slow that down to 120 and adjust up on the fly. Mach 4 will let me adjust my feed rate as it's running. And that's what I do. I set a feed rate, and then as it starts cutting, I'm listening for what that sounds like and the noise that bit's making in the material, and looking at my chips, making sure I'm getting chips and not dust. So there's a little bit of watch, listen, and follow along and adjust on the fly. I set, when I'm surfacing, like when I surface the spoil board, I've set it up for 180 inches per minute. But the last spoil board I surfaced, I ended up at 250 inches per minute. I probably could have gone faster, but by the time I found that 250, the toolpath was almost done. So why bother? So But yeah, you would probably go ahead and slow down the feed rate as well. All right. Let's see here. Brooks Martin has a comment. I can't say I'm missing it, but Vectric removed the bake rotation boundary option in version 12. It was nice to know the option was there. Well, if it's, I've never used it, and you and I discussed this behind the scenes, I know, but I never used that option. I never found a situation where I need it. But if you miss it, if you really need it, get a hold of Vectric support. That may be something that would be easy to bring back. It's quite possible it fell through the cracks. And it's like, oh, that's not active. Let's go fix that in the next patch. But I would reach out to Vectric support. They have already fixed a few things like that. So, but again, I never used it. So, let's see here. Looks like David is trying to mill out a part, what appears to be a rosette for like on a door molding or something like that. I have a project coming up that will require a cove that is set on the inside edge of a circle. Okay. I believe it'll be about 5/8 or so in angle. Would you be willing to demonstrate how to do this? I wouldn't be able to do it today because, as I say, I'm under a time constraint today. But and I've got about 5 to 10 minutes. But shoot me an email, and if you have a photo of what you're looking at, trying to recreate, that would help as well. I think I know what you're talking about. It says, I believe I'll need to use a 2-rail sweep and a profile, but not sure. That would do it. This also may be a good use of the molding toolpath. It also may be a good use of a specialized cutter that you can just do an inside profile with and be done with it and not have to model anything. But without seeing that, I'm not quite sure. So I wouldn't say yes, no, or maybe. But shoot me an email and we can get into that. And in fact, we might think about doing that tomorrow on the members only live stream. More on that in a minute. Now, let me throw something up here. And like a dummy, I should have done this earlier, but I didn't. I mentioned earlier that for the first time on this side of the house, I believe, on a Sunday Live Q&A, I'm going to have a special guest. And I kind of thought he would show up here during this live, but evidently not. And that special guest is a gentleman by the name of Maurice Erickson. He's based in Colorado, and he runs a tidy little YouTube channel over here called Erickson Design and Woodworking. I've not put a link to it. I will, forgive me, Maurice, I will put a link in the description to his channel. Maurice is going to be my special guest next week on this live Q&A. And we're going to talk about not only some of these killer projects that he's doing, and I mean, this guy he has a creative mind, and I love the process that he goes through. Now, he was a guest a couple weeks back on the members only live stream that I mentioned before. And I asked him if he'd come along and do a Sunday live stream, and he was more than happy to agree to it. We're talking about 3D wooden puzzles. All you folks who are wanting to figure out how to make puzzles, he's done it. He's willing to share. He's willing to help. This piece of wall art, it looks like tufted leather. The mind behind that, I want to get to know better. A finishing technique using ferric nitrate. A keepsake box, continuous waterfall grain. Here's where it starts getting interesting. His cribbage boards and marquetry skills are off the chain. And a lot of this is done with laser. His cribbage boards are over the top. The guy is just a creative. He's one of these evil geniuses, that is just, you wonder where the heck does this come from? So he's going to be my special guest next week. We're going to get into the creative process, where he comes up with his ideas, how he comes up with those ideas, where he takes inspiration from. Is there a specific aesthetic he's going for? Or is this a case of this is in my brain and I want to put it into the computer? How do you do this? How do you come up with that kind of stuff? So Maurice is going to be my guest next week here on the Sunday Live Q&A. I think I have a link down there. If I don't, I am seriously remiss. I will get a link in there as soon as we're finished live. Get over there and subscribe to Maurice's YouTube channel. I will put the link in here myself right now. That's Erickson Design and Woodworking. Get over there and check out his work. This guy is phenomenal. And thank you, Maurice, for coming on next week. Thank you for coming on to the members only side last week. And I hope, if all goes well and we get a good reception, I hope to have more guests on very soon. I've got 2 in mind. One, we're just working out the details. The other doesn't know he's fixing to get an email from me, but he is. So it promises to be a lot of fun. And I want to bring you guys more examples of folks who think outside the box and create more than just something to hang on the wall. Signs are great, but CNC routers are capable of so much more than just something to hang on the wall. And I want to bring you examples of that. So I'm not going to do it every week, but every so often there will be a special guest. And hopefully you'll go over to Maurice's channel, Erickson Design and Woodworking, give him a subscribe and check out his work. The guy is just absolutely amazing. So that'll be next week. Then we also have, for the members only live stream, if David can shoot me that file and a picture of what he's trying to do, maybe we'll get into that and we'll get into making. I think he's looking for a medallion for what goes on to the top of a piece of molding for like a door frame molding, where you've got the plinth at the bottom, you've got your molding in the center, and a rosette up in the corner, another piece of molding, another rosette, and then down to the next plinth. I think I get it. It's just going to be figuring out the profile he wants to do, and that'll let me introduce the spin tool. May not need to do the 2-rail sweep at all. So, and the reason we're doing that is because another guest I had lined up, haven't heard back. We're not confirmed, so I'm going to assume he ain't going to be there. So if you don't know what I'm talking about the members only side. If you'd like information on the members only side, just click that join button down there close to the subscribe button, and a little panel is going to pop up and a video is going to play. It's going to tell you all about channel membership. And you're not joining anything. You're no obligation. It's just going to give you the information. Then you can make your decision from there. We've got a great group of people that join us for these members only live streams. We have a super secret Facebook group and Facebook live chat. We get in, we work on problems, we solve problems, we create new issues, we solve issues. It's a great group of people. So next week, Maurice Erickson. Video after that. I hope to have the spoil board done. That'll be the next video. Right now, I've got to get going. So I hope I answered everybody's questions satisfactorily. And yeah, y'all have a great rest of your Sunday. Thank you very much for spending part of your Sunday with me. And thank you for your continued support. Getting close to 50,000 subscribers, which is kind of exciting for me. Well, very exciting for me. So I'm about 200 away. Let 200 of your friends know, hey, get over and subscribe to Mark. Because we all have more than 200 friends, right? Yeah, right. Okay. Y'all have a great Sunday. Have a great rest of your week. And I'll see you next week with my special guest. Y'all take care.